There's quite a few different podcast formats, so I'll just quickly walk through them. There's the straight interview. That's the real popular one. It's one-on-one. It's what I do with Reputation Revolution, and that's where you're basically interviewing someone. Now, it could be a hardcore question-answer type interview. It could be more conversational, which is the way I do it. But they're a very popular way to package your podcast, and very good to listen to because if someone builds a show and you like the host, and the key is the host has got to be good and know their staff and ask the right questions and keep things moving. There's that side of things, and then there's the guest. What sort of guest are they? What sort of information are they sharing? What's the conversation like? Are they engaging both the guest and the host? It's kind of like content curation, because you've got to pick the right guests, and that's part of running an interview show on a podcast via a podcast is it's all the things. It's the hosting and the questions and the themes and that side of things, and it's also the types of guests you get on. Alrighty, then there's the two up. So the two up is there's you and one other, and you're riffing, and that's a popular format as well. And these are the topics you're riffing on, and you don't want them just to be rambling conversations, but each episode will have a particular topic that you dissect and go deep, and you might argue. That can work quite well as well. And you might also bring in guests as well to interview. So the two up is quite good because it takes the pressure off you as an individual, to have someone else that you can just banter with. And the more you do these podcasts, the better that hopefully your interaction is with each other and engagement with each other. So I like the two up. I think with the right people, and I'll give you an example of a good one in a minute, I think it's a very effective one. And then if you whack a third party interview there just to mix things up, spot on. I think that's quite good. Solo riff into the mic is also a popular format, particularly with thought leaders and educators and experts. It's tough. It's tough. Often, some people will do it scripted. Some people, you definitely need your bullet points. Scripting adds another layer of time to prepare. But if you're pretty good on your feet, you want to make sure, though, that you've got bullet points and you've really thought out that episode. Otherwise, it is pretty easy to sort of weave off the track, and, it's up to you to bring yourself back. At least with a guest, if you're interviewing a guest, they go off the track. You're listening to them, and, hey, you can bring them back on. When it's yourself, you've got to be sort of self-editing as you go. But a solo riff into the mic is a good format. It certainly shows that you know what you're talking about. You can go deep into a topic. You can tell stories. The whole box and dice, I think it's a good one, but it is a tough one to do. And they tend to be shorter episodes because, an interview could go for an hour and a half or whatever. If it's a deep, they go in deep. But a riff into the mic, that's a long time to be talking. So I would only recommend that if that made sense for you to do so. Having a straight up panel, so 3 or more people, that can get a diversity of views. You can have controversial topics. You'll get more disagreements. Just a little bit harder to manage. You've got to make sure that you don't talk over each other. But I don't hear a lot of 3 or more discussions, but which might mean it might be good and quite effective. But then you've got to also wrangle other people to make sure you're all doing it at once. So I think that there's scope in that format if you've got partners in a firm that you're with, or other people that you work with, that you might do that. And then there's one, solo plus multiple contributions. And I say this because for the 250th episode of Reputation Revolution, I went back to a whole stack of past guests and I gave them a question to ask what's working for you in a personal branding and professional marketing sense, just a general open-ended question. And I loved the types of answers that I got back. And usually they were between 1 and 2 minutes. And then I cut them up and I riffed between them and introduced each one, and it came out to be about an hour and 13 minutes or something. So it was much longer than I normally do, but I think it was pretty good. First up effort. There is effort in terms of getting people to contribute. But I think if you can get some help to get out to people and they give you a video and you turn that video into a podcast, and then you can use that video, which I've done with my 250th episode. I've got 17 contributions. That gives me 17 posts on LinkedIn with their video. So I love the idea. I just realised how much time and effort it took, but I think it's a good one. If you're wanting diverse views on particular topics, every now and then go solo, but bring in extra people who contribute to it, and then you edit those in. And then there's the narrative style storytelling. This is what a lot of the big media companies do. This is basically when they're telling a story and they'll cut to an interview and you'll have a narrator and you might have some sound effects in the background. I've seen some sort of solo podcasters do this. Fair bit of effort involved. When done well, it's a great listen. But I've tried it once before without the bells and whistles, but telling someone's story, and then rather than put up the interview with this particular person, they had a good story. I knew the story very well, and I then narrated it and then cut that person's answer to something in it. And then, so it wasn't a Q&A, but I used all of the interview, but I just cut them into the podcast and made it a narrative. And it's quite hard to do, and to do it well. So if you're churning out a lot of them, it's going to take up a fair bit of time. So I think probably the best formats are the straight interview, the 2-ups, the solo riff into the mic is probably the ones that you'll veer towards. But again, what's going to work well for you? And you know what? If you start one and you change it to another, that is quite okay as well. So it's all good to do that.